Hi folks, you're with Tacitus today at your Pushback channel, and thank you for joining this radio live stream. In this essay, I'd like to talk about, there's an old phrase you've probably all heard, to get along, you have to go along. Don't fight City Hall and this sort of stuff, and go with the flow. And I guess that's not unreasonable sort of general advice, if you like. Does the same apply to this insane world we're living in of wokeness? Do you have to go along with wokeness? Do you have to go run into the HR department saying, "Hey, I've just heard Billy Bob say something. I think he's a Nazi." That's what, did you do that, or do you sit at the meetings in the office and then somebody says, "Well, we don't have enough black lesbians in department, ABC," and then you chose saying, "Yeah, that's right. I've always wanted more black lesbians in that department, and even though the quota says we need to hire one more, I think we should hire two. I think we have to send a message to those straight white males that they're just not in charge anymore. Their behaviour won't be tolerated, and they have to grovel on the floor in front of the black lesbian. I think we have to do that. Let's retrain these straight white males just to let them know that they're not allowed to be fascist Nazis anymore." Do you do that sort of thing? I mean, how far do you go with the wokeness thing? I've seen people change on a dime. I had work colleagues where they've jeered and laughed and derided this idea of hiring the diversity hires and the affirmative action hires, and I'm sitting next to one at a meeting, and the one who was constantly deriding the idea of it, the diversity hires, and then the CEO's there, and he says, "Oh, it's about time we had lots more women in the senior roles. Don't you think, boss?" And he did everything except get on his knees and gobble the boss. And I remember sort of turning around, looking at him, and thinking, "Holy fuck, where did that come from?" So yeah, he obviously made the decision to get along. I got to go along here. This is the new value system. Black lesbians everywhere, and I just have to go along with it if I want to survive and do any good. So is that where we're at the moment, or is it even gone beyond that? Now, quite some years ago, I mean, we're talking probably pushing 20 years ago now. I was tapped on the shoulder, and it was a multinational firm, or their sort of Asia Pacific office, if you like, was stationed in Sydney, and the CEO tapped me and said, "Look, we want you to come over and work for us." Now, I didn't like the way they went about it, but as I sort of thought it through, there were a few things. They just very recently gone on a serious campaign of woke. They'd hired this radical feminist lesbian human resources director, and she was busily getting rid of all the white boys and on some very spurious and vague sort of charges, and then replacing them with if it was a straight white woman, it was a woman that was dressing up in, remember the super vamp sort of things, like the dark lipstick and the super white powder makeup and everything. It was the vampy look for any women that were straight. Lesbians and gays were being hired left, right, and centre, and in senior roles, like the engineering director was gay, the marketing director was bisexual, the so and so was a lesbian, the director of product development was a brown homosexual. It just went on. And anyway, I noticed all this, and with the company I was working with, did a lot of business with them. That went back some time. So I looked at all this wokeness with amusement, and I was almost aghast actually, because quite a few of the people I had dealt with, the straight white males who were very good at their jobs, or at least way better than the people that replaced them. Suddenly my job was made a lot harder because it was taking much longer to get things done, and I was generally dealing with people who were quite hostile to anyone that wasn't a minority. So I was the classic straight white male. then I was viewed with ideologically with hostility and suspicion, and this again made it harder. Necessarily harder to get things done, no matter how bland or straightforward the whole thing was. Um, Now, because the people they'd hired were such low quality and the people they'd got rid of were much higher quality, then we kind of had to do a lot more training programs to try and bring these new people up to speed. But they weren't high IQ people. And they didn't really give a shit either. But the thing about most of these affirmative action hires is that they've been employed a job they never would have a hope of getting outside of affirmative action. But nonetheless, they come to it with a sense of utter entitlement. They're entitled to this job. They're entitled to well-paid work. And they always were. They've just been denied it by an evil, misogynist patriarchy. So they don't think they have to work hard. I've done my bit. I'm a black lesbian. That's all the work I need to put into this, and the rest they have to give to me, and I'm fucking entitled to it. And if anybody says I'm not, then they're a damn racist Nazi. And it goes around like that. So anyway, this is what's going on at the firm at the time, and it's at this time that the CEO taps me on the shoulder, and hey Billy Bob, come and work for us. So now I didn't like the way he couched it. He put it in terms of personal loyalty, and said, well, do you want to come and work for me and be my sort of in whatever the role was, and you were put to me, you'll be my little boy, you'll be my bum boy, you'll be my fetch and carry flunky. And I'm here to say that, but that was the well paid though it was. But he made it an issue of absolute personal loyalty. Now, I didn't think that I should be a personal loyalty issue because I thought I was, if anything, slightly overqualified for the role. But something a boss told me very early on in my working life was that if you give someone a job they don't really deserve, they're entitled to, haven't earned, like you're paying them a lot more than they could get under any other circumstances. This is pre-woke days, still assuming a straight white male. He said you've got their loyalty because they know that they never would have got this job without your patronage. They also know if they shit you for any reason that you'll fire them and they'll lose this job and they'll never be able to get something like that again because they're just not up to it. So when you get someone like that, you've got their loyalty. Their loyalty is guaranteed. They won't look sideways. They won't take a shit without getting your permission because everything they've got, their life, their standard of living, everything is down to your patronage. So the boss explained to me. But he said, if you, and this is like I'm a young guy, early 20s at this point, he said, if you hire someone who's really good and they do not rely on your patronage, then you have to really be sure that they are going to give their personal loyalty because they can go out the door and get another job on that sort of money. Or something similar, they can still do okay. So you have to really make sure that they're going to be personally loyal to you, and you can do that through other means, like give them more overseas trips, or give them a super hot chick as a personal assistant, or something like give them other trappings to ensure their personal loyalty. But he enforced me as if he was like, I don't know, 30 years older than me, and he was impressing upon me this idea that you had to make sure that the better quality the person, the more you had to be sure that their personal loyalty was in place and it was unquestioned. So it's something a bit of how things are done, I think, at that level. So anyway, he's giving me this thing and telling me how much, hey Billy Bob, millions of people want to come and work here, and there are a million people that would pull their back teeth to get this job, which actually would have been right. It was a bit of a plum gig. So anyway, he's offering it to me, probably not on a plate. I've got to get down on my knees for it, but nonetheless, he's saying, look, it's yours if you want it, provided you suck up to me hard enough. Now I balanced balanced it all out. It was paying probably 45,000-50,000 bucks more than I was getting, plus more peripheral benefits, more overseas trips, things like that. Actually, that didn't have any benefit for me because I was doing a fuckload of traveling at the time anyway. So So anyway, I'm looking at it and thinking, well, why would I want to go to a firm, a company that is getting rid of all the capable people they've got and installing, the proverbial black lesbian everywhere you look? Why would I want to work for a firm like that where merit clearly counts for nothing? Well, certainly at those lower levels. And if he's tapping me on the shoulder for this, then will people out in the wider world view me as some affirmative action hire? All these thoughts were going through my head back and forth, and in the end, I got put off. Effectively, the angry lesbian HR director would, as the executive vice president, which was the role, would have reported to me, but all the key woke warriors that were really instituting this wokeness in the company, he insisted they all had to report directly to him. All the other people could report to the executive vice president, but the HR director reported directly to him, and therefore, the executive vice president would be actually on par with the HR director, which there was no other company at the time I was aware of that would have had that arrangement. So clearly, the instituting of woke, the pushing of the proverbial black lesbian into every role, that was a mission coming from the board of directors or some outside influence. I think it was actually the finance, the money guys, because they bought up another company, and the money guys, I think, like the big Wall Street banks, were leaning on them to do this. That's my guess, but there would have been other factors at play as well. Now, these were guys that were competing in the marketplace and doing all right, competing in the marketplace, but from almost the exact time they started implementing the woke program, they suddenly started winning non-meritoriously, just winning all these government contracts, and it can't have been coincidence. So there's got to be the big banks, and at the time the left-leaning government in Australia must have got together and said, look, hire black lesbians left, right, and centre. And don't worry, because that'll mean you can't compete. It'll mean that you're incapable of competing in the marketplace, and you'll lose business. So we'll cover you by giving you lots of government contracts without having to go through a competitive bidding process. So we'll artificially fatten up your sales books, your order books, but also artificially fatten up your profits. Now, this was going on, and I thought, well, what am I actually going to do? If they're not competing anymore in the marketplace, and am I just going to be some sort of a toy boy that goes around or something? What's it all going to be? I couldn't understand it, because it wasn't a competitive situation. So why did they need someone like me? And the credentials that I put on the table was that the show that I ran would compete commercially compete in the marketplace and win. So I was just uncertain. I kind of tried to get it out of him. In terms of corporate hacks or goons, there's plenty of other people that you could give this to. Why me? Demonstrably, commercial, market-driven, hardworking, dude. If you had a really competitive situation, you're having to be, then I would understand it. But you're heading in completely the opposite direction. You're moving away from any competitive market situation and hiring, a bunch of low IQ affirmative action flunkies. Exactly what do you want me to do? And it seemed that somehow I was perceived as some sort of token guy that maybe they could cover up their lack of competitiveness by having someone like me there that would make it look like they were being competitive. I wasn't sure, nor did he ever explain it, by the way. But a couple of things occurred. The very top positions were all patronage, all mates, buddies hiring each other, that sort of stuff. And then, as I say, the affirmative action coming in from the other side. As I was walking through the place one day, the HR director was there and gave me a quick sermon of I've heard you're coming to work here. I hadn't agreed to anything. I hadn't said that I would come and work there at all at this point. I've heard you coming to work here, and let me tell you, I'm the boss of my area, and I report to so and so, and don't think for a minute you're going to tell me what to do, and da 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 da. And if it comes to a fight or a showdown, I'll make sure you're the one that gets thrown. I got that. Like, you got to be fucking kidding. Said in that angry, bitchy, sort of lesbian type thing of, I can say this to you, but if you say a word back to me, I'm a little victim, and I can go running to the boss. I can go running to Boss Daddy to tell you off. It was that delivered in that way, and then someone else came on and said, I'm a friend of the chairman, and don't think you can tell me what to do. And what a fucking place! Like, it was a hive of petty bickering. Hugely overpromoted people, all desperately trying to grab any piece of prestige and petty turf battle type stuff. But the people who were the main troublemakers all reported into this CEO. And so it's not my thought. I can't do much with them. I can't fire them, or so I'm on par with all these hugely overpromoted people, and it just ended up putting me off. And I thought, no, I don't want to do this. I think I can be successful in my own right, through hard work and ingenuity. And so why the fuck do I need this crap? Now, I made that point, and so they waved another quite big chunk of money in front of my face. And if I adjust that for wage inflation over the time, we're talking probably between 750 and 800,000 a year in today's money. And I've never made that amount of money in a year. So I can look back now, and this is obviously hindsight, and say, well, if I'd taken that gig, I would have had the big bucks, the brand name prestige, if you like, that went with it. And I'd have just had to sit there and bite my tongue and accept the ignominy and the humiliation of having low IQ, lesbian HR directors, finger wag and morally lecture me or something, but to go along, if I'd gone along with it, I'd be getting along, and I'd have the big bucks and the other sort of attendant issues, and be making contacts with the right people that would then enter the eternal patronage machine and be gifted high-paying jobs in the non-meritorious. But like, just looking at it from that perspective with hindsight, now I think I made the right decision at the time. But just this concept of going along to get along, then I had a choice. But I don't know today, to most young people, and I'm talking about people on the make and trying to develop careers and this sort of thing, straight white males under the age of 40, say, which is what I was then. Do they have a choice now? Do they have any chance to get along without going along with the woke insanity? I'm not sure. I don't think they do anymore. And I think if they, for straight white males that don't go along, they're going to be, it's them who are going to be the floor sweepers and the pizza delivery boys, not the angry low IQ lesbian who will be a diversity director. I don't know. What do you think? Put your comments below. You've been with Tacitus today, your Pushback channel, and thank you for listening.